Hi guys, this is Sai Kumar Kortiwada. In this video, we will learn about React folder structure and what are the different folders we have and what are the different files we have and what is the importance of each and every file in a basic React application. So already I have explained how to create an React application in my previous video and how to run that application in our local host. I have explained completely in our previous video. Please watch that so that you'll understand in a better way. So let me quickly jump into Visual Studio Code. Here I have loaded all our React related code which we have created in our previous video. So here is a complete folder which I have opened in a Visual Studio Code. And it's very simple. Just go into the new window and just you can choose either a new window or you can choose open folder and go to the path wherever the folder has been created and open it. And if you see here, it is coding with Sai. That is the project name which I have used for our application. So now what we'll try to understand is we'll try to understand the top layer of folders and each and every file. So first we'll go with the README file. README file is just a document where you can give all the details of your application, and that helps you to give a complete information for the other respective developer. For example, if you have any specific installations which you have to do manually, that you can mention over here. And if you have any special scripts which you want to run, that also you can mention over here. For example, in general we'll use npm run start for running our application, but in few cases if you want to customize the script, you will be writing your customized scripts in package.json, and people can not know that how to use it. Then in that case you can mention a document and complete information can be mentioned in readme file, like you have a custom script, so you can run it by using npm run custom script. In that way, all the document or all the things which a developer need to know who is cloning this project for the first time, all the details will be available over here, and you have to update according to your project. And coming to the package.json. So package.json, whatever the dependencies you have, all the dependencies will be registered in our package.json, and that's how the package.json works. And if you see, there are peer dependencies like this, the dependencies, whatever the mandatory dependencies for our application, that will be over here. And there are something like dev dependencies. As of now, we don't have any development dependencies, so we are not using any dev dependencies. And these are all the available scripts which are given by default by React whenever we are creating an npx create React app. And if you see, we are using a React 18.3.1, which is the latest one. At the time of recording, this is the latest one and I am using the same. And if you want to upgrade to 19, that will be released in few months. It is in beta version currently. So once it is released, you can upgrade your application to 19 as well. And there is a testing library which will be used by React, and it gave the default testing library. But if you want to use another testing library, you can just use npm and install it and you can use that. For now, this is a inbuilt testing library which is given by React. Now this is a package log.json. Whatever we have installed, all the packages are registered over here, and their specific versions are also pointed in this package log.json. So it's like a backup of your package.json. Now there is something like git ignore. Whatever the folders or whatever the files you want to ignore, not to push into the git, all that folders can be pointed here. I don't want to push node modules or pnp files or build files or coverage files. All this I don't want to push into the git. Hence these are the default paths which are given for git ignore in our React application. And now we have a source folder. We'll talk more about source folder because we will be working only with that source folder. And coming to the node modules, whatever the scripts mentioned in this package.json, whenever you give npm install or if you create a React application for the first time, these node modules will be installed in your folder. And if other developers want to install, then they can just clone this project and give npm install. It automatically installs the node modules. Now we are not pushing these node modules, and that is the reason it is grayed out. Now let's talk about public folder. Public folder will have all the related stuff which are publicly exposed, and that doesn't need any minification or transpilations. So such things will be available in your public folder. Let me consider like images, or if you want to have any text files, if you want to have any JSON files, any dump which should not be converted, which should not be translated or transmitted, such type of files can be used inside our public folder. And the main thing, whatever whole application will be running behind this index.html, and index.html is the main HTML, and React is a single page application, hence whole content will be managed only in this index.html. So that's about your index.html. And here we have a root element, and this is the major part which we need to think. This root element is the only one which will handle whole application, and hence this React is used for creating a single page applications. And if you see, there are logos, fav icons, and all this stuff. So manifest.json, just whatever the fav icons we have, and what is the name which we are using, and all this related stuff we'll be using here. And the theme color, background color, all this has been given in the manifest.json. So it is not much used for us. Now let me go into the source. All the development part or all the implementations which we are trying to do, that we will be doing in the src folder. And by default, src folder will give some set of files. So let's talk first about index.js. Here we said index.html is the one which will be rendered, but before rendering, how it is getting rendered? It is getting rendered just because of this index.js file. So index.js file will get the root element, and that root element will be mounted on your render of React. So we'll talk about the flow in couple of minutes. For now, just remember index.js will be the first JS file which will be loaded in our React application. And by using this index.js, it calls the index.html's data, and that is where we are calling this document.getElement by id. Let's talk a bit later. Now let me go here into logo.svg. It's just a logo which we are using. And let me go into the setup test.js. So whatever the testing library and whatever the rules you want to write for the testing files, or if you want to import some set of external libraries for testing purpose, then you can use this setup test.js. And this is the root JS file for our React testing purpose. And now let's talk about index.css. This is acting like a global CSS. Index.html is a global HTML file. Index.js, it's a global JavaScript file. Index.css, it's a global CSS file. And whatever you are writing over here, that can be used anywhere in your application, and it can reflect anywhere in your application. So that's about index.css. And this is where the components comes into picture. We'll learn more about components in the upcoming videos. For now, try to understand how these components are configured. After React 18, we generally use functional components, and they are becoming more popular. And even the Facebook team is encouraging to use functional components. We'll talk first about the functional components, and later we'll go with the class components, because if you guys are working with the legacy applications, you should know something about the class components. But if you are working on the new applications which are after 16, then no need to bother about the class components. You can use this functional components. We'll talk more about these components in another video. Here I'll focus only these functional components. Whenever you are using React 16 plus applications, then you can just create a function, and that function should return HTML content, and that has to be exported, and this particular function can be used as an HTML element. And we'll talk how this has been injected as a root component for our React application. I'll talk bit later. Now this is a function which is returning a JSX, and the JSX looks something like this. Why? Because you are seeing a HTML content, and you are seeing a dynamic content which is the JavaScript contents, and hence this is considered as a JSX. So this is something related to the JSX. We are combining our HTML along with our JavaScript dynamic content. And now let me go with app.css, and this app.css is specific to our app.js. So in general, whenever we are trying to create a component, we always focus to use CSS file specific to that specific component, or you can use to create a individual CSS files which can be imported by any component. So this is only the root component which has been created. And if you see this app.test.js, this is specific to that particular app component, and this is the testing which you can run write for this app component. So whenever you want to write a specific test case for a specific component, then you can create a file named component.test.js, whatever the component it can be. And each and every file has a function, and that function should be start with capital letter. And in general, in JavaScript, we'll start in every function with a small letter. But whenever you are using a React, and if you are creating a component, it is mandatory to use the first letter as capital letter. And now this app is the root component. Why? Because if you see the index.js, this app is coming from app folder, and the file is imported over here, and this is the app which we are exporting from here, and we are trying to use as a HTML element. So this looks like a custom HTML element and is called as a React component, and this is the first component, hence it is called as a root component. So how can we say now, whenever we run the application, it starts running index.js and index.html. Once the index.html is loaded, it loads this index.js script. If you see that index.html, you are loading this id, and the id is equivalent to root. And if you see, once this application gets loaded, that is HTML is loaded, then index.js will start loading, and whenever it starts loading, it will get the root element, the element which we have seen just now in the index.html. This is the id which we gave as a root, and that root element we are creating as a React root, and we are using that root element to render the component, and the component is app component. We'll talk more about strict mode later. For now, I'm going with app component, which is the root component which we are trying to load. And once the index.js is loaded, it will just go into the app.js, and it will showcase all the JSX whatever we have in this app.js. And this is the way how we import the CSS, and we'll talk more about the CSS in a separate video. For now, this is how we have imported our CSS, and that's how the application will run. So first it goes to the index.html, then go to index.js, load the root element, and mount the component into the root element, and that is how you are able to see this app. And let me go into the browser and show you how this has been loaded. Let me go here and let me refresh this. So it is running at localhost 3000, which is the default port. And if you see this, this is the whole screen which we are seeing from the app.js. So for example, let me remove this header part, and let me write h1, and let me write it as coding with Sai, and save this. Once you save this, no need to reload your local host. Why? Because once you saved it, it will do a live reload. So let me go here, and you can see I didn't reloaded the application, but you are able to see the changes immediately on the browser. So that's how this live reload will work in React. And we are good with each and every file, but we are missing one thing, that is nothing but report web vital. So this report web vital JS is very useful whenever you are targeting for the performance related stuff. If you want to know some performance, so you can use this report web vitals integrated either with any of the analytics. That could be a Google Analytics, that could be any of the third party analytics. So for now, I'll show you each and every performance related stuff, and what are the different types of performance which will be happened on this report web vitals. First thing is, we'll talk about get FID. This is first input delay. So actually speaking, what is this first input delay? The time between the first user interaction and the page response. So for example, if a page is loaded, I can't immediately go and click on a button until it loads. So the time taken between the loading and where I can click on the screen and where the page can respond, so that time can be calculated by using this first input delay, and this helps how much time it takes to load a particular page. And now let's talk about first contentful paint. So this is nothing but the time taken to show the first element or to show the page is ready and in loading state. For example, once you load the application may not be loaded at a time, but first element which is mounted onto the browser, so that is calculated and called as first contentful paint. And largest contentful paint is the time taken to load whole page without any pending things, and we can start interacting with the web page, and that time is called as large contentful paint. And there is something called as time to first byte. So the time taken to load the first byte from the server onto the browser is called as time to first byte. And there is something like cumulative layout shift. Actually speaking, whenever you are loading an application, there will be a lot of screens or lot of components which will be loading and shifting each and everywhere to show some set of effects and where the user can interact and be ready. So such things can be calculated by using cumulative layout shift. And if you want to see this basic stuff, that means if you want to see the report web vitals provided by our React and not integrated with any of the analytics or third party analytics, then you can just simply console this. So let me show you that console. Let me go into the app.js and I'll write some use effect. I'll talk more about this use effect and everything in the future, but for now let me consider I'm using a use effect. I'll just call this report web vitals, and so here let me use off and let me pass a callback function. Here our callback function is console log. In third parties you will be passing the third party callback function. So now I'm using import and I can just import it as the way how it got imported here. So let me use this and paste here. So now I'm using this report web vitals and you can see the console. Now let me go here and just refresh and just go to the inspect. Now you can see all the four objects. That is nothing but TTFB, that is time to first byte, that took 11.5 milliseconds. And if you see here, this is also TTFB, it is also 11.5. And this is FCP, the first Contentful Paint, it took 141 milliseconds. And if you see FCP again, it is also 141. So let me refresh again and you can see the TTFB and FCP. Let me go into the elements. So how these elements are triggered, as I said, all the HTML or all the components will be mounted onto one particular element, that is the root element. And let me go into the body, and if you see there is a root element, and inside this root element we have an app component. At whatever we wrote that component name, it is not rendered. Instead, whatever the function it is returning, that content has been rendered. And if you see, this has a div with a class name as app and there is coding with Sai. That means this is the whole structure of your React application. That is a basic one, and the app component will be the root component, and we will manage all the stuff in the root component to check everything, how it is navigating, how we are injecting one component into another component. All this we will cover in the upcoming videos. And this is the folder structure for our basic React application. If you have any questions, please comment in the below session. I'll try to clear all the doubts in the comments. If not, I'll try to do a video for you guys. Hope you like my explanation. If you like my video, like, share, subscribe to my channel for more updates. Signing off. Thank you.